Celtics Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new edition of Celtics Beat. Great to have you here with us. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti, of course, our guest du jour, the guest of honor, the guest of the day, all of these things. Steve Bulpett from Heavy.com. We always love having him here. Steve, how's it going?
Living the dream.
Aren't we all? You know, I wasn't on last week. Ev, carried the show, did a great job doing so. But for anyone that may not know this, because I know I haven't been here in a couple of weeks, and sure, there are other Celtics podcasts out there. If you're listening to this show, watching this show on YouTube, you probably check out some of the others. You're a C's junkie. We appreciate it. We respect it. We are willing to share the spotlight with others. But if I'm telling you for the first time, forgive me. They're pretty good. These Celtics, they're pretty good. 5 straight wins. They have made it 8 of 9, as a matter of fact, out to a 20-5 start, which you don't need to check the standings, folks. That is the best record in the entire NBA. My question, though, just as a way to start us off, is what is the difference between this 20-5 start versus an unbelievable start last year under Joe Mazzulla? We know the makeup on the floor is obviously different. The makeup in the room is different. The way this team plays is different. But the records, very, very similar. And it wasn't too long after this hot start that the team slowed down and started to play a little bit differently, got a little bit caught up, got, some internal stuff as well. And obviously we're never quite entirely the same after. So what did they learn from last year to where they are right now? It starts at the head coach, Joe Mazzulla, to the top talent, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and filters all the way down. Steve, I defer to you. You watch this team quite a bit, obviously. You report on them. What makes them different this year from where they were at this time a year ago?
I think the roster makeup, frankly, Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday in place of Rob Williams and Marcus Smart is an upgrade. And they get criticized for their depth, but I think their depth is pretty good. You might not have some names or scorer type names that jump out at you coming off the pine, but I think the guys they have there are hustler types who aren't trying to do too much, which is important, who are kind of look like they're committed to playing the game the right way. I think they're in significantly better position than they were last year.
To that point, there were, and this, I'm not going to say this was wholeheartedly an issue last year, maybe at points last year, but definitely in recent years, whether it was under Ime, under Brad before him, it speaks to, as you alluded to, the roster composition, the makeup of the group, which has obviously evolved over time, other than, keeping the true core pieces together, those being the Jays. It's their team first and foremost. But it seems like, under the Porzingis and the Holidays of the world, and even Derek White, and Al Horford, like, remove your starting 6. You get to that depth, which, early in the year, I'll admit, I was very concerned about it. And I wasn't alone. I think a lot of people were. But as it has sort of found a little bit of a rhythm, some of these guys, like you said, not a lot of household names, but maybe more importantly, it's a group of players, it seems, that really know, understand, respect, are content with their roles. They are, in the truest form, role players and are good with it. And we've seen a lot of guys in recent Celtics history that may have been quote unquote role players that weren't necessarily always willing to accept the role. Is that a big part of what has you believing that they're better positioned now than they were before?
I just think they have better players. And look, some of the improvement in the players is within the same people who were here last year. I think Derek White is better this year.
Sure.
I know Sam Hauser is better. A shooter like Hauser, given more reps, more time, more confidence, he's going to get better. He's getting his minutes every game now, and a shooter needs to know that. A shooter needs to get his touches, and that's there for them. And I think, like I said, Derek White, I believe too, is a better version of the Derek White we saw last year. He was good last year. He was very good. The numbers, the on and off court numbers certainly pointed it out last season, right? But I think he's even better this year. And teaming in the backcourt with Drew Holiday, I think that's a really good defensive combination as well.
Yeah, that's what makes the biggest difference for me, I think, between last year and this year. I think last year you had a team offensively that came out of the gates really hot. At certain points felt like defense wasn't a priority for them as much as, just scoring the basketball because they were shooting the ball so well. It was almost like, who cares about defense? We're on fire. It's not going to matter what we do down there. We'll just focus down here and we'll be okay. The shooting came back to the pack a little bit. And all of a sudden they were, a team that floundered a little bit I think at the time it was a West Coast trip that really kind of tripped them up. I think the Golden State game they had circled on the calendar prior to the season starting, was sort of part of the wheels falling off a little bit. This team defensively is just much better. I mean, it's personnel, it's connectivity, it's everything. They're just a much better defensive team. They held the Magic team yesterday to the lowest rating of almost any team in the NBA this year offensively. I mean, I know the Magic aren't a great 3-point shooting team, and it's kind of a game that Boston can obviously exploit, especially if the shots aren't falling for the Magic. But at the same time, they held the Magic team to their worst offensive output of the season. So it's not like this team, I mean, it's several things, but it's not like this team doesn't understand the importance of defense. I think defensively, when you have Derek White and you have Drew Holiday, they set the tone and everybody behind them just kind of falls in the line. And I think that's going to serve them better, Kaufman, as we keep going forward here. I mean, they're 14-4 against teams over 500. I think defense has a lot to do with that. Yeah,
well, look, they've got some better people. I mean, and I think they're just more conscious of defense last year. Malcolm Brogdon said it after the last game, and he put it on the line. He said, look, we just, we didn't pay attention to defense as much as we should have. Go back to the Pierce, Garnett, Ray Allen teams. And, the big talk then was, Tom Thibodeau and his defense. But you talk to players back then, they said, look, no, this is Doc Rivers' defense. The only difference is that Doc steps aside and gives Thibodeau and defense a big chunk of every practice. So it wasn't like that Thibodeau was one pulling strings and stuff and, setting up a scheme that was hard to break. It's just that they paid more attention to it. It was a bigger part of their practice day. And I think you're seeing a little bit more of that this year. Clearly, I think people didn't expect quite the defense that they're getting from Kristaps Porzingis. And that's been a huge thing as well. I mean, they're, like you said, connectivity, but all the stuff we're talking about, and I hate to cut this short because maybe we can end the podcast after this, but it's going to come down to the same thing it's come down to the last several years. And I know we've talked about it before here, right? 2018, 19, 20, 21 was different, but 22 and 23, the Celtics got eliminated because when push came to shove, when it became crunch time, they resorted to hero ball. Not because guys were jerks. It's like, oh no, but it was more like, I'm going to take responsibility and go make a play here. Nice, but it takes you out of your offense, makes it easier for the defense. 1-on-1 becomes 1-on-2, and the games, they get flustered and games would fall away. There's no reason they should have lost the 2022 finals, but they did. So here we are. It's going to come down to the same thing again. And you just hope, Celtics fans, I guess, would hope that with Holiday and Derek White in the backcourt, that they would kind of slow things down, not slow things down because actually they want to play fast, but put things on a more even keel with ball movement, with getting the ball side to side, with making the defense move. Because if this Celtic team moves the basketball, it is unguardable. These guys are unguardable as a unit. They've got too many people who can spread the floor, too many guys who can beat closeouts and drive. And coming off the bench with Al Horford, which is a ridiculous benefit to have, and a Sam Hauser, it's in their hands. I'll leave it at that.
We'll get right back to Steve talking all things Celtics and the rest of the NBA. Before we do, Ev, how the bets going?
Well, and per usual this season, Kaufman, terribly. But it's discouraged me from trying, Kaufman, and you can try too. You can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. The teams that you pick to win the money line, they win, get $150. Now, I will admit, last week, I will pat myself a little bit on the back. My $5 money line winner to get you that $150, that cashed. And what did I do? I recommended whoever the Detroit Pistons were playing, and it just so happened to be the Indiana Pacers. And I don't know if you've paid attention, Kaufman. The Pistons have lost 22 in a row, and that's just easy money.
I heard something about that.
Yeah, this time I'm gonna stick with the Celtics on this one. Caesar -240 in Golden State. As much as I respect Steph Curry, I think the Celtics are going to win this game. I think you can get your $150 real quick with a money line betting on the Celtics Tuesday night in Golden State. That -240, real easy for you. Trust me. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel. It's no better time to get in on the action than today. Right now, the app is my favorite way to do things. It's so easy. It's at your fingertips. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs and unders, awards the end of the season, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Kick off the NFL season, tip off the NBA season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Massachusetts. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234.
All right, back to the show. So I'm glad that you brought all of that up, because I don't know about you guys or for anyone out there listening, watching, but I'm not the kind of person, at least at this stage of the year, talk to me in a couple months, but right now I'm not the kind of person that knows off the top of my head this team is 20-5, that scoreboard watches, that could tell you the Bucks are a game and a half back in the East, that the Sixers are 2 games back in the East. I can tell you that right now because I just looked it up, but it's not something that I just can readily, spout out to people about this team's successes. The thing that impresses me most about this team so far, or the thing that I maybe pay attention to most, it's not, hey, what's your record? Do you win? Do you lose? It's how do you win? How do you lose? And the way in which this team is playing its games, obviously not to be cliche, but to the end, we're seeing maybe more consistent, even if not 48-minute efforts. They're dialing back in crunch time. If maybe they let go of the rope a little bit in the third quarter, they're pulling back and yanking again in the fourth. They're not a team that, obviously it happens from time to time, but generally they're not a team that gets blown out, loses by 15 points or worse, like so many other teams around the NBA. I think one of their strengths is that connectivity that we talked about, Steve, and the fact that this group, it has I don't want to say it has a mindset that other teams of recent Celtics history haven't had. I think they've all kind of talked a big game, but this team, more so than maybe some of those recent clubs, has exhibited it, has shown it on a consistent basis. And we're only a little over a quarter of the way through the year, or a third of the way through the year. So there's a lot of sample size left, obviously, before we get to the playoffs. But in this moment, I would say for me, that's something that's really encouraging.
Yeah, they had a couple of games early on this year where they had big leads and lost them. And it was, some of the stuff we've seen in the past. More recently, we're seeing them get big leads. And another team makes a run, they catch themselves. Celtics catch themselves. And therein, to me, lies a competitiveness that's got to show itself. And you look at I think this past Friday night's game said quite a bit. Third game in 4 nights for the Celtics against a team that hadn't played since Monday, Orlando. And Orlando always gives the Celtics a hard time because they are the Magic. That's an energy team. Celtics came in, it was a tight game for a while, and then they just pulled away. And it's like, there's too much in the NBA, to me, this AAU ball mentality where AAU, you come in and you play 4 games in a weekend and I'll get them next time, and you get your run in, and no one really pays a whole lot of attention to the scoreboard, and there's not the competitiveness that there used to be when guys played outside in the summertime instead of in gyms, where you had to keep the court. There was a keep the court mentality where if you lost, you sat for who knows how long. So you do whatever you could. I remember going down in New York City where you learned that you did not drive to the basket on game point. Either hit a jumper or you would bleed internally.
Yeah.
So I think there's more of that. I think there's more of that competitiveness. We saw it this weekend. I mean, you did that to Orlando. They were in town on Thursday night while you were playing Cleveland. They were sitting there relaxed and waiting for Friday's game. You beat them Friday, and then you came back and you validated it on Sunday. So I agree. You can glance at the record. I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. It's more, how are you playing? What kind of basketball are you playing? What are the signs? When things get difficult, do you continue to move the ball? Do you stay with what you're supposed to do? Or do you go off script? Which is, again, what's killed them in the past. This team should, we can dicker over what they should have in their pocket by now from the last few seasons. But this team this year, 2023, 2024, it's on them. I think I've said it before with a couple other teams, but no one can beat the Celtics, but they can beat themselves. I think there's a little bit less. I see a little bit less of a propensity to do so this year.
You go back to those Cavs games earlier in the week too, like there were just multiple shooting performances, whether it was Karis LeVert or with Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. A lot of retaliate, like the Celtics go on a run, then one of those guys, or maybe both of them, would get hot, and they would claw back a little bit. And then again, that resiliency of the Celtics to say, okay, yeah, it's not going well. Let's reset this thing. Let's get everything right. Let's get back in our offense. Let's move it back. And then they would just they kept pushing the Cavs down, even when they kept punching back up. And that's the stuff that I think Steve was just talking about. As impressed I was with both of these wins with the Magic, I don't want to dismiss the 2 games against Cleveland because, again, those games both felt like in the past one of those might have slipped away, or maybe both of them. But it would have been games where Boston just was up big and thought they could cruise, and I was just impressed with the fact they didn't back down, and they just recentered themselves and found ways to get back on track. That's all.
Well, the Cavs are a mess.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I wrote about it last week, toward the end of last week. They're a mess. There are some things going on there internally. I was hoping that I talked to Donovan Mitchell one-on-one after Thursday night's game, hoping he was going to take the opportunity to unburden himself. He didn't. But I've got enough there to know from talking to people more quietly that there's not a lot of happiness there. And they remember last year, the 51-win team, and they were the flavor of the month and all this stuff. And they get to the playoffs and get knocked out by the Knicks in the first round and didn't look good doing it. Looked really bad doing it. So I don't know if that team just got a dope slap and took a standing 8 count and never really recovered from it, or what the deal is, but they're not happy there. And now it's almost like they've got a bit of a reprieve because Darius Garland and Evan Mobley are going to be out for weeks with injuries. So it's like, well, I can't judge them without those guys. But when those guys were there, it wasn't good. So, maybe a stay of execution, but we'll see what happens with that club and what they can do and, what they're able to do as far as retooling things.
I just appreciate that we're 25 games into the year and this team doesn't have a bad loss yet. And what I mean by that, I realize there was a game up by 15, 20 points, but what I mean by that, like you look at the 5 losses. They lost to Minnesota, who shockingly Timberwolves have the best record in the West. So that's a number 1 team in its conference. I realize it wasn't at the time probably, but right now it is. And that's the way it works when we look back on these games. Philadelphia, that's a top 3 team in the East. Charlotte, that's Charlotte on a Monday.
I tried to tell you that just 2 seconds ago. That Charlotte game is a bad loss, brother. Okay, I don't care what way you want to slice that.
No, I guess that's true. I mean, Tatum exploded. Everybody else around him let him down. But Orlando, that's a playoff team right now, as we talked about. Indiana right now is at least in the play-in tournament and high energy, all this. So fine. Charlotte, 1 bad loss, but this is a tough trip. Obviously coming up, I realize Golden State is not what it once was, and this is that next challenge on Tuesday. So as you're listening to the show, very potentially tonight, this, you got the Warriors there, Sacramento there, a pair with LA, 1 Clippers, 1 Lakers, and say what you will about any of these teams and some of the ups and downs they've experienced, but obviously having to go out and play these games there, it's not quite the same as we used to refer to like the Texas Triangle type trips all the time. This isn't that. I don't know what it is that always made those so horrifying, but this is a little mini gauntlet here, I think, Steve. What are the expectations for this trip, and what's a satisfactory result coming back home after, just after Christmas?
Well, with regard to Golden State, I would direct you, I can put in a plug for our site, to the story that I'm guessing Adam didn't read today, about the Warriors and their issues. I got was talking to a number of people around the league that really kind of laid it out for what's wrong with them and how it just doesn't look good down the line. But look, the Clippers are playing better. Sacramento's going to be tough there. That's on a back-to-back. That is on a back-to-back as well. So, what you want to see is the Celtics, if they do lose games, is it because just some shots didn't fall, or is it because they reverted to old issues? You mentioned, Jason Tatum went crazy in in Charlotte, and other guys let him down. Well, maybe the other way around. Sure, guys are going to get hot at different times and you got to feed them, but you don't want a guy taking over. You want to make sure that the ball moves and you get easy shots, and you make the defense move and you take something out of the opponent for when they try to go back down the other end of the floor. So, look, I would again not look as much at the W and L. As long as the Celtics are playing well here on this trip, you take what you get. As long as they don't do a cave-in game, and as long as they don't revert to my turn, your turn, no, it's my turn, then I think they'll be fine. I mean, again, it's still December. There's a lot more to go, and whereas like a team like Golden State needs all these games to try to get itself together and prove that it's not a team fighting for a play-in spot. The Celtics have just got to get themselves geared up for playoff time. Doesn't mean you give away games now, because you want to build the habits. What you do every day. Like they say, you need practice reps. Well, games are reps as well for what comes down later in the year. So, play good basketball and you can deal with the rest, I think.
Well, as you said, it's December, and this holiday season, folks, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals, keep you energized on those jam-packed days. We all have them, obviously, as the holiday season is fully underway and Christmas approaches. Factor, which is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for any meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. Seriously, it's nice and easy. You'll save time, you'll eat well, you'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all of your holiday to-dos. I'm still doing some shopping. When I say that, really, I mean my wife is taking care of the shopping because she's just much better at all of this than I am. But you can skip the stress of meal prepping over the holidays with Factor. You could choose from 35 plus weekly flavor-packed, fresh, never frozen meals that support a healthy lifestyle that I so deeply covet, and meet your meal preferences, all delivered right to your door, ready to eat in only 2 minutes. That's it, 2 minutes. If you're looking for calorie-conscious options over the holidays that also taste great, well, you can try delicious, dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals with around or less than 550 calories per serving. Head to factormeals.com/Celtics50. That is factormeals.com/Celtics50. Use that code Celtics50. Get 50% off. That is code Celtics50 at factormeals.com/Celtics50 to get your 50% off. Let's get back to the show.
Kaufman, I got to just shout out Factor Meals real quick, just for 10 seconds.
Please.
I hosted a Christmas party here this past weekend, and so I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning several nights this week just trying to get my house ready. And Factor Meals came in super clutch. Thank you so much. I got sent 6 meal kits, 8 smoothies, and 8 protein shakes, and I was able to at least eat healthily, nutritiously in 2.5 minutes every single night. I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning. So shout out Factor Meals for fueling me last week. Thank you.
Beautiful. Love it. Yeah. Keep them coming. Keep that door-to-door service too. It's perfect. In terms of some of these individuals, we were just talking about Jason Tatum, Steve, and obviously he's having a great year, and statistically, so long as he's healthy, he's always going to have a great year. That's just the expectation at this point in time. But in terms of going beyond the box score, what have you seen from him as he continues to grow, mature? Obviously, this team, so many people coming into the year once said, well, now that Marcus Smart is out of the way, and this was, I realize he was kind of a de facto captain, certainly a vocal voice on the floor, in the room, all of that, and I'm a Marcus Smart supporter. I'm not one of those people that was pleased to see him traded away, although I agree with the points that you made earlier about this just ultimately proving to so far be a better mix, a better collection, and I didn't necessarily see that coming, but the results bear it out. You can't argue it, and I think that there is some of the let Tatum be Tatum, let Brown be Brown, let these guys have full autonomy, truly take on let everyone take on their mentality in terms of it actually being their team when Marcus Smart is out of the picture. I think there is an element of that. What have you seen from Tatum here, roughly a third of the way through the season, that maybe is a little bit different or further along than in the last couple seasons?
Just stronger going to the basket, simply. More interested in going to the basket and stronger when he does go. That's really it. The rest of his game, same, etc. But that part is, I think, huge.
Just looking here to see what does it surprise you that free throw opportunities are down for him this year? I realize you're not going to get fouled every time you go to the basket, so I'm not saying those two things are necessarily directly correlated, but the fact that he's not getting to the free throw line at quite the same clip as he did last season?
No, not a concern. it's however many games in. I don't know what the numbers are in terms of free throws per game, but
It's
you know,
last year was 8.4. This year it's 6.7.
yeah, I mean, a free throw and a half per game.
Yeah. It's just not getting fouled once.
Right.
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is you could look at it saying, well, he's making his move quicker, and he's beating the defense. So he's where he's supposed to be, or where he wants to be faster, because he's more committed to seeing the opening and going after it right away.
I would argue that, yeah. I think he's just been a much better decision maker, whether it's passing the ball, getting off it, or just attacking mismatches that he can exploit. I think he's been great in the post. I think he's learning how to play with his back to the basket a little bit more. I think that's been a big part of his game. If his shooting numbers were better, if he just shot the ball better, you'd laugh at what he'd be doing right now. I mean, the shot over the past month just hasn't really quite been there. He's taking a lot more pull-ups right now. Which is fine. It's just they're just tough shots, and sometimes they go and sometimes they don't. Celtics as a team are way up on pull-up shots this month. It's been kind of what's been going well for them the past couple of games. They've been hitting a lot more pull-up jumpers. But if Tatum's shooting percentages were just a little bit higher, you'd be talking about him as, in the MVP candidacy. I don't think he's there right now. I think there's some of the other guys ahead of him, and it really doesn't matter with his team. But if he
Christian McCaffrey,
there you go. Yeah.
Listen, I'm
sorry, it was
the sun, Steve. I don't disagree with you for 1 second. It's amazing all these different quarterbacks that people are trying to shove down our throats in the MVP conversation. When if it's not McCaffrey, it's Tyreek Hill. It's none of these other guys that people want to talk about. That's
anyway, sorry, I just said,
No, it's fine. I just think with Tatum, it's a lot of things in terms of just playing faster and being more confident in his decision making. That's really about it.
I agree.
Although I do think it's kind of an interesting point. Last year, I don't know, maybe it's just something we talked about a lot on this show, but I feel like last year there was a lot of Tatum's on the MVP mission. It's get out of Jason Tatum's way. And it's not, he wasn't saying that was the most important thing to him, and he never would. And I don't even necessarily believe that it was. I think this guy wants to hoist a banner as much as anybody else in that locker room. But there were a lot of people trying to make it a story. This is the MVP year for Jason Tatum. And we don't have that this year. And not because the results aren't there. It's simply, it just feels like that hasn't been a real talking point this season. Why do you suppose that is from last year?
Well, if you remember when Ray Allen and Paul and Kevin Garnett got here, the big storyline, and it wasn't just from the media, it was them talking about it this way. They were talking about, hey, look, we've already accomplished all the individual honors. We've got the all-star appearances, we've got the points, we've established ourselves, and now we want to win. Unfortunately, not everyone comes into the league with winning games being their priority. It's I remember talking about this with Pierce years ago. Guy comes into the league, he wants to establish himself, then he wants to be seen as an all-star, all these things here. And I'm not saying it's consciously guys, Celtic players saying, screw winning, I want to get my points and I want to get my recognition. It's not that. But, you're someone that's been a competitor or been in competitive situations at least to get where you are. You've beat out a lot of people. And there's the need to, be seen as the guy when you get there. It's why guys who come in like a Derek White, totally unheralded and all this stuff, and becomes a key player. What is there about Derek White physically and all these different things that should make him as important as he is? It's between the ears. It's how he approaches the game. So that's the deal. I think that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, and they talk about it. This past press conference, they were talking a little bit about, Tatum's we all know, Jaylen Brown was second team All NBA last year, and he's just not gonna, he's gonna score less. He's just not gonna. He's not gonna be on that list. Tatum is been a first team All NBA player for the past 2 years, and he's averaging less than he had 30 points a game last year. He's not going to touch that this year unless he goes super nuclear. But it seems to me like that just doesn't really matter right now. These guys seem to
better not. If they want to win, it better not matter.
Yeah, right. Because again, they have other guys in the team that can all score. I mean, Porzingis is unbelievable. Derek White is shooting the crap out of the ball right now. And then there's just Drew Holiday who's here. And then, as we mentioned, Al Horford off the bench. What a luxury that is. He's been unbelievable since Porzingis went down. He's been almost perfect every night, because nobody's perfect, but he's been spectacular every night. So again, it's more about it feels like a trust thing to me, understanding that at the end of the game, it doesn't have to be you. It can be someone else. And those guys around you are really good basketball players. And maybe this is the year they realize that, Steve.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's, to me, the ultimate Celtic trivia question. And, I've been selling it for years. No Celtic has ever led the league in scoring. 6 players who played for the Celtics have led the league in scoring elsewhere, but no Celtic has ever led the league in scoring. What does that tell you? I mean, what was the hallmark of Celtic basketball over the years? I mean, I've always said that there wasn't a day in Bill Russell's life that Will Chamberlain wasn't a better basketball decathlete in terms of he could do all these things, but Bill Russell understood the object of the game in a way that Wilt never quite did, and I love Wilt. He was a great guy, but that's the fact, and that's how the Celtics mentality has always been. Larry Bird is seen as this, one of the all-time great players, but you talk about his passing as much as you talk about his scoring. Here's a guy that could score at will in a lot of ways. And can you imagine if he'd have ever paid attention to the three-point shot the way that the NBA does now? So that's the thing, is that, that's what wins basketball games. It's being better, having more talent, sure. But it's how does that talent play? Does it play in a way that makes you a winning team? Does it promote winning? That's where it's at if you want to win championships, and I think that should have been proven by now. But yeah, people fall into the thing of well, they've got 2 All-Stars, they've got 3.
Certainly, last year's champion should have proven that. Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't hurt to have the best player in the league, but at the same time, everybody collectively made a lot of sense.
But was Nikola Jokic the best player in the league? Physically, he could do this, that, and whatever. No, he was the best player in the league because he promoted team basketball. He was going to get points, whatever. But one of the reasons why this big lumbering, I shouldn't call him lumbering because he's a better athlete than he gets credit for, which was the same with Larry Bird. But he had more opening day for the basket because he had spread the ball around. And defenders had to stay closer because when Jokic had it, their guy could be getting it and could beat them. So, Larry Bird was a better outside shooter because someone had to pay attention to Kevin McHale. And Kevin McHale was a better low post player because his man had to, he had more room to move because guys had to honor Bird and stay closer to him. It's how you spread the floor. But if I'm a non-shooter and my guy can play off me, then it screws everybody.
Denver isn't the best team in the NBA standings-wise, for whatever that's worth, but obviously the defending champs are still incredibly good, incredibly impressive. We're a ways out, clearly, and injuries can strike and all of that. But as you see it, if healthy, team versus team, Boston versus Denver, if the Celtics should come out of the East and the Nuggets come out of the West, are the Nuggets still the most dangerous team that you see?
Yeah, you never know. The Lakers are, do not sleep on LeBron. But there are times when Anthony Davis does take naps. So, but when that's the thing, that was the game he had in the in-season tournament finals. It's like that's the biggest indictment of him. That he was that great that game. It's a different team when he's like that. So, but yeah, I mean, this team's up there. Health is going to be the key, or a key, obviously. But I would still think Denver's, the most dangerous opponent that any team from the East is going to face out there, if in fact the Nuggets get that far. But they miss Bruce Brown. These guys played important roles for them. Even Jeff Green, who was like what games is he on, what games is he off guy for much of his career, certainly while he was in Boston. He could have produced a heck of a lot more. But yeah, I look at Denver still as the class out there, and I've got to see more from other teams. And there's difference between regular season basketball and playoff basketball, and there are teams that have great regular season runs. But how tough are they when it becomes a possession for possession game? So, you're going to need to see a heck of a lot more out of Minnesota before you kind of believe them, I would think.
We've heard a lot of people say, if they're right, if they're playing their game, no one can touch the Celtics. Now, you could choose whether or not you feel that way or believe that, obviously, anyone out there listening, but that seems to be just a building opinion out there, is the Celtics have they're so dominant that when they're right, healthy, available, all of that, like, this is the team. At the very least in the East, if not the entire NBA, this is the team. In the Eastern Conference specifically, who's the other one, or who's the closest? Is it Milwaukee after adding Damian Lillard? Is it another team? What do you think?
Well, yeah, Milwaukee, another story you didn't read of mine.
I do read your stories,
Well, evidently not. Look, the people that are looking at them, people on the league, GMs, personnel people, look at them and wonder about their defense. Lillard and Antetokounmpo, Giannis, they played a lot better together. They played better complementary basketball, and it's going to take a while for those guys to I think, get in sync. But the question is going to be defense with that team. Milwaukee probably would be the biggest competitor for Boston. And it's not that the Celtics, you use the word dominant. I don't think they're necessarily dominant. I just think they're better than the people they're playing. But they're not like blowing your doors off. They're just simply better.
I would agree with that, but I think as they move forward here, keeping them together, keeping them healthy is going to be the most ultimate important thing here. And
sure, absolutely.
In terms of teams that scare you, I'm always just going to have Miami circled. I don't care what their roster looks like; just don't care. I'm always just in awe of the accomplishments. They're incredible.
Well, it's the Jimmy Butler factor.
It's the Eric Spoelstra factor. That guy's, every time, tip my cap.
Fair. Have anything to add before we let Steve go?
No. Jaylen Brown has been spectacular lately, and I want to point that out. I'm very pleased with some of the developments that I hope we've seen flashes of recently. I hope they stay, because the guy that we've seen recently is very, very good at basketball. And if he's committed to moving the basketball like he's been, that's the secret sauce.
But you look at his numbers looking great, but we talked about not looking at the record, looking at how they're playing. Yeah, he's been playing. He's overall fantastic. The one-on-one, which becomes a one-on-two, the turnover thing. Everyone that handles the ball a lot is going to commit turnovers. It's how you commit them. Do you commit them because you're turning into somebody that you should know is there, but you didn't think about it or see them? So I think, I like when he moves the ball quickly and gets it back. I think, less for him and Tatum both, the fewer dribbles the better. I just love those guys. I think they're two of the best handful of finishers in the NBA. And when you see more of that from them, you'll see more of the best that the Celtics can be, I think.
Steve Bulpett is a senior NBA columnist for heavy.com, Heavy on Sports, the Twitter account. You can get him on Twitter, on X at Steve B. Hoop, where, of course, he does post his articles and writes about such things.
Some people read them.
I do read them. My goodness. I'm under attack. I'm under siege here on this particular show. Writes about the decline of the Warriors, the questions surrounding the Bucks, and all of these other great things that we have already discussed.
The Bucks one was a while back, Hoffman. That's on you, buddy.
It's on me.
The Bucks one got posted. Oh, you talking about the there was one that got posted today.
Oh, okay. Then I missed that one.
Well, at two, Evan.
I missed it. I'll get to it. I promise.
It's appointment reading when Steve Bulpett tweets.
It is. That's not even a joke.
We've always said it.
The joke.
We're big. No, it's not a joke. We're big proponents of the Steve Bulpett
wrapping it up.
Written word. All right, we'll let him go. We're going to wrap up too. Check out this show on wherever you get your podcasts, rate, review, all of that good stuff. Most importantly, subscribe, though. We do appreciate it. We'll have another show for you later on this week, and we'll see how this West Coast swing is going. We look forward to it. But, Steve, we do always appreciate you hopping on with us. We'll bug you again down the line for sure.
Take care.
All right, for Steve Bulpett, for Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. This has been Celtics Beat on CLNS Media.